Have you ever felt like letting go of someone feels impossible, even when the person isn't good for you? That's what I'm talking about in this week's video, why letting go feels impossible for codependent people. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris, I'm a psychotherapist, and I love helping people create relationships that work. So in this video, we're gonna break down why letting go feels so hard and some ways to set yourself free and actually start letting go. So the first reason why letting go is so hard for people who struggle with codependency is that we have extraordinary empathy towards others. And while this is our gift, it can also be a curse, because when we're really empathetic, we actually feel other people's feelings and we get lost in them. This empathy can actually make us even feel like it's our responsibility to handle them, to fix them, to soothe them, even when it's really not our business to do so. Because people who are healthy need to manage their own emotions. But when we're codependent, we get enmeshed with other people's feelings. And it's almost like we can't distinguish their pain from our pain. And if you're codependent, you might be telling yourself, I can't leave. This person is really struggling. They're not going to be able to live without me, or their life is going to be so much harder. So that empathy makes you stay in a relationship even when it isn't good for you. Because this empathy actually makes it incredibly difficult to let go, because it feels like you're abandoning them rather than taking care of yourself. Another reason letting go is so hard in codependency is that most people who are codependent can't tolerate being alone. They have to have someone to connect with, because if you're codependent, that's how you feel whole. When you're in a relationship, when you have someone else to focus on. This could be a partner, this could be a child, this could be an adult child, this could be a friend, a coworker. It doesn't matter who it is. Codependent relationships can happen with anyone. Now, the other reason you may not be able to tolerate being alone when you're codependent is it triggers a lot of old feelings of rejection, of abandonment. Often childhood wounds surface because we have the time and space, because we're no longer focused on someone else. We're actually left alone within ourselves, which is an opportunity for growth. But when you're codependent, you don't see it that way. You see it as something to avoid, because the pain of being alone is excruciating. That's why some people refer to it as a withdrawal process. As you're letting go of a relationship, it feels like you're in withdrawal because you've become addicted to that person. If you can relate, say me too in the comments. I'm right there with you, but this video is going to help. Now, another reason why letting go is so hard for people who are codependent is that we often crave the intensity that goes along with dysfunctional relationships. Often when we have a narcissistic or toxic partner, they'll do something called love bombing. And that's when, in the beginning of a relationship, they shower us with their attention, with gifts, with time. And because we're starved for that kind of love and attention, we eat it up. But we also become addicted to it. So when that attention wanes and starts to shift into something else, we don't know what to do. We keep trying to get back to that same level of intensity. And this is where the arguing, the making up passionately gets into play. Because sometimes, especially if we've grown up with intensity, that's familiar to us. And that can even be considered love, that element of chasing someone for that love. So part of recovery is learning to live without that intensity. And that's why letting go can be so difficult, because we've come to expect the highs and lows of intense relationships. But when we're used to that intensity, when it goes away, we often feel empty inside or disconnected, because we may be confusing intensity with love. Now, another reason letting go is so hard for people who are codependent is that we have a false sense of responsibility. We think it's our job to fix, caretake, solve problems, all of it, because that's how we got our value, most likely growing up. So we feel like a failure if a relationship ends. We feel like it's our fault. Even if the other person is narcissistic or toxic, we think, if only we tried harder, the relationship would work. The problem is if that toxic person isn't willing to look at their toxic behavior, the relationship isn't going to go very far, and you're going to keep getting hurt. So this sense of false responsibility keeps you feeling trapped in a relationship because you think it's your job to fix it, when actually it's not. If you've ever tried fixing a relationship, say me too in the comments. I'm right there with you. Now, another reason letting go is so hard is that codependent people tend to be extremely loyal, even when it's no longer serving them. It becomes a point of pride for us that we're not going to give up. We're going to give this relationship our everything. The problem is that not every relationship is going to benefit from that. And when we have that over-functioning type of behavior where we're doing 90% of the work and they're not doing their part, the relationship isn't going to be sustainable. But you may pride yourself that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to end this relationship. I'm going to stay till the bitter end. The problem, though, is that the codependent person often pays the price for that, because over time, a toxic relationship gets worse, never better. You may think, if I leave, that means I'm not a good person. Or what does it say about me that I'm giving up on them? But the question you really need to be asking yourself is this relationship worth your time and effort? Are you getting anything back? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of this video. Now, the next reason letting go is so hard is that often codependent people struggle with low self-esteem. We feel like we don't deserve anyone better. And we're so afraid to let go of the person we're with because we assume that we're never going to get in another relationship. There's a lot of black and white, all or nothing thinking here, because the idea of being alone is so unbearable. So we stay in a toxic or unhealthy relationship because it's better than nothing. Another reason letting go is so hard when you're codependent is that you tend to idealize the other person. You see their potential, what they could be. If only they could be sober, if only they would work on this one thing, then I would be happy. Then we would be great. You cling to the hope that if only the other person would change, everything would be okay. The problem, though, is that we see the idealized version of what somebody could be, not who they really are. And part of having a healthy relationship is coming to acceptance about who that person really is, not who we want them to be. And idealizing someone makes it really hard to let go because we always see the potential and what could be. Now, what can you do to start letting go? The first thing, I want you to get out some paper. You can pause this video if you like, and I want you to write down the answers to these 3 questions. 1, do your feelings matter at all to that other person? Because if the answer is no, that's a major red flag. Because if your feelings don't matter, you're never going to get the love and the respect that you crave. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, does this relationship have at least some give and take, where you're not always doing the giving, you're not always overextending? That other person actually gives back to you. Because again, that's going to be more of a sign of hope rather than someone who doesn't give much at all. The last question I want you to ask yourself is, are they willing to look at their part even if they're not good at it? Have they ever apologized? Have they ever said, yeah, you know what, I shouldn't have talked to you that way? That also is a huge sign of hope. But when somebody can't see or acknowledge their own behavior in any way, that's a major red flag that usually means letting go is a viable option for you. Now, the next thing I want you to start practicing for letting go, even if you're not ready to, is start practicing separating your emotional energy from theirs. And there's a process I talk about in my next video, How to Let Go in 10 Steps, that I want you to go watch, because that is your next step.